welcome to the Outdoor Programs Plant ID Wednesday workshop. This is just kind of a general plant identification thing. I'll go over quickly, but a lot of things that you can pay attention to in terms of trying to figure them out is like different leaf structures, if they're opposite, alternate, or any of these. This is more than we're going to get into tonight, but just kind of a neat overview of just different things that are helpful in identifying plants.
So a little fun fact, we're going to be starting the night off with talking about trees. So a fun fact, did you know that trees can communicate and defend themselves against insects who are attacking? And so as the bugs begin to raid the tree, basically, their leaves flood with something called phenolics, a type of chemical, and they're able to signal to other trees to start their own defenses as well to kind of fight against the bugs that are attacking. Okay. So a little pun, the top trees of Oregon. The first picture we have is a Douglas fir. The Douglas fir can grow up to be about 230 feet tall. They call the nickname for a Douglas fir is a flat, friendly fir, because basically when you run your hand down one of the branches, the pine needles aren't going to poke you, basically. So like pretend this is like the pine needle branch. If you run it down, it's going to be nice and smooth. So it's kind of like an interesting little rhyme that we used to remember. Another interesting fact is the bark is fire resistant. The next one we have is the quaking aspen. They're known for their oval shape and they'll turn a really bright yellow in the autumn. So you can probably look around Portland and you'll see the quaking aspen is just bright yellow. Another person to admit really quick here. Okay, where was I? Okay, so the second cool thing is that they're called the quaking aspen or a trembling aspen because as the wind blows, it looks like it's shaking or trembling. It's also interesting because the quaking aspen is actually one of the first trees to come back after a forest fire occurs. So we've had a lot of forest fires lately. I'm sure this will be one of the trees that we see first. The third one we have is the western hemlock. A fun little nickname for them is crazy hair day because you can see that the needles are kind of crazy, like a crazy hair day, and they have these narrow small cones at the end of each bunch of needles. Another fun fact about them is that in the past, by different native groups, the western hemlock's branches have been used for bedding, medicine, and even different dye materials. So has a lot of different uses there. Okay, give it to Christina.
And then a couple of trees that I'm going to talk about. One of my favorites is the vine maple. They usually grow as like in the big forest under all the evergreens, and the way that they're able to survive in a forest with all these trees that like have their needles on all ears, that their bark is green, and so it can photosynthesize through its bark even after it's lost its leaves. And another way to help remember them is that vine maple has 9 letters in it, and the lobes of the leaves there are 9 lobes on the leaf. So that's a good way to remember what it is. And the wood for these trees is dense, small, and flexible, and in the past it's been used to make spoons and dishes. Another one of my favorite trees here is a western red cedar. They scale like leaves, and they're like, they scale like kind of needles, and they do opposites in pairs of 4. Their pine cones kind of are known to look like brown roses, and they have drooping branches. They also really like to live in places near water. They make really great firewood and are often used for like the outside of houses and for saunas because they're pretty good at like staying alive amidst like a lot of water and moisture. And their leaves have a great aroma. Does anyone have any questions about some of the trees that we've talked about so far? Cool. One other thing I want to tell you all about a Douglas fir is this is the pine cone for a Douglas fir. And it's pretty easily recognizable because it has these like little things sticking out of it. And there's a little story behind this pine cone. So the idea is that a while ago in the forest, there was a huge fire, and all the animals of the forest were running around trying to find shelter from this fire. Actually, this probably happened like a month or so ago, even here. And so during this fire, the Douglas firs, like, as we talked about, have like really strong bark. So there's mice that were running trying to find shelter for this fire. And they were looking everywhere and tried all these different trees. And finally, the Douglas fir tree said, "Mice, you can come hide in my pine cones and I can keep you safe from the fire." So since then, we have these little mouse feet and tails sticking out of their pine cones because the Douglas fir was able to keep them safe from the fire.
Okay, so here's a really cool link that I actually found, this really cool resource. I can try and put this in the chat later on. So we're gonna check that out. So basically, this is an interactive tree identification key. So if there's a tree that you find in the wild that you'd basically like to know what it is, you just kind of go through these steps and the website leads you through it. So this evening, I have this part of a tree that we found right outside the outdoor program. Not really sure what it is, but we're going to be using this key to kind of try and find out what it is. So the first thing, it asks you needle-like leaves or broadleaf leaves, and we can see it's a broadleaf leaf. So click on that. The leaves compound. They have several individual leaflets, or are they simple? Just one blade. So in this case, this would be considered compound because there's 3 different ones. So I'll click on that. Are the leaves opposite or alternate? And symmetrical, so we would say opposite. How are the leaflets arranged? Does your tree have 5 or more leaflets or 3 or more leaflets? So in this case, it would be 3.
Well, we looked outside actually at the tree and it has 5
Okay.
on some of them. So,
So I will say 5.
But it'd be hard to tell from this sample.
Yeah. Does your tree have 5 leaflets with spiny fruit and a leathery seed capsule with 1 brown seed, or 7 leaflets with short spine fruit and a leathery seed capsule with 1 or more brown seeds?
I think go back, actually.
I should go back.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the next question was the 5 leaflets, which that does have. This does have 3 right now.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say 3.
Yeah.
And single samaras with an elongated wing, samara is a small wing seed, or 3 leaflets and double samaras half-inch long. What would you say?
This is a different result than what we found last time we did this.
Yeah. Usually it works a lot better than this, honestly.
Yeah,
I wonder if there's a step that I did
so they
wrong.
were opposite. They were opposite.
Yeah, they're opposite, yeah.
Does your tree have 5 or more leaflets? So it's 5 or more.
Huh.
Let's see what we'll give it this one. Well, last time we did this, it turned out to be an ash tree. This has been not working the same way last time, so we're not sure what happened. And we'll just keep going.
Hopefully in your future endeavors in using this, it works better for all of you. But the idea is that it will help you identify what kind of tree that your little branch comes from if you'd like to know. So yeah, just a cool little tool to explore in the future. And again, I'll try and put this in the chat for all of you. So we will move on. So next we are going to be talking about ferns, which are very popular, of course, in the Pacific Northwest. So the first one, which is actually one of my favorites, is called the licorice fern, and it grows on tree trunks and branches. So most commonly you're going to find it on, a branch, tree trunk, or in this case, it's growing on the side of tree trunk. And basically, why it's called a licorice fern is that the rhizome tastes like licorice, and the rhizome of the fern is like the root of the fern. So you have like the thick root and then the actual fern plant growing out of it. So it's going to be the brown, thicker root of the fern. So if you ever find a licorice fern and you're sure that's what it is, you're not going to try the leaf, you know. You would ideally wash the root off and try that instead. So the next one is called the bracken fern. These are known for their triangular blades and shape. So as you can see, it has the wide kind of triangle shape. This is actually the most widespread fern in the world. That's kind of cool. And they have these really deep rhizomes or roots that can help them survive forest fires. The other fern is the sword fern. A sword fern, it's called that because of its long blade-like look to it. So if you can see here, it has, you know, the bladed shape. That's kind of how you can pretty easily tell it's a sword fern. They can grow to be about 3 to 6 feet tall, and you can't really tell in this picture too well, but often they have the red-brown spores on the underside of the leaf, and they just look like little dots, basically. So you can also tell that it's a sword fern based on those. Okay, we'll go to underbrush.
So these are some plants you'll notice a lot anywhere in the woods here out in Oregon. The first one you'll see is salal. I've even seen that like walking around Portland. Both of these are evergreen plants, and they're underbrush that grow like on the ground and stuff like that. Salal produces these berries, and it has a leathery leaf. And Native Americans made great use of the salal as a medicine for a bunch of different purposes. For food, they would eat the berries or dry them and eat them later, and for dye. And then they would use the stems of the salal as like a cooking utensil, or like cooking tools or chopsticks or things. And then the Oregon grape is actually Oregon state flower, also an evergreen. And one thing that I think is really cool about these Oregon grapes is randomly you'll see them turn like bright red, and you'll just see it in like one patch or on one plant, which is kind of weird because most of the time when we see leaves change color, we see them all change at once. So in chatting with a friend about like the science of color, often leaves will turn red and get more red in areas where there's more sunlight because it protects them while they're like pulling in the nutrients into their plant. And so my theory, I haven't quite proved this before, is that they turn red maybe if they're like in a cycle of like needing to pull in nutrients, and that's individual to each plant. And that's the only reason I can think of that would be why that like one individual plant would turn bright red when the others in the area would not. Yeah. And then some other really cool things we see in the forest out here are lichens and mosses. They're both quite different. Mosses are much more of a plant, where lichens are actually a symbiotic relationship between fungus and algae. So like the algae stuff you'd see growing in a pond, and your mushrooms, they like grow and exist together and kind of are able to create a cohesive relationship in which they can grow on like rocks and branches, and they're also a sign of like good air quality in an area. So if you see a lot of lichens out in the forest, it means that there's pretty good air quality there. Some different types of lichens are the crustose, the squamulose, foliose, and fruticose. And I'm curious from y'all if you think you could name like, see how there's a bunch of different types of lichens on this branch. If anyone can like see if they could identify which category some of them might be from. And if you're not sure, that's okay. But you can just take a guess. So I think the easiest one to identify is the fruticose. It's this one right here with the long stringy stuff. Some of these other ones are a little harder because they look maybe more the same. I actually think most of these would be like the squamulose or foliose, and the crustose you'll see more just like on rocks and stuff like that. They're just kind of like look like they're painted, or it's like mold or something growing on there. And then for mosses, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of those. And there's actually a really cool book if you're interested in learning more called Gathering Moss, written by the same author as Braiding Sweetgrass. But this one right down here is called stair-step moss. It kind of, each time it grows, it produces like a new shoot. And it has these red kind of stems to them. So that would be one that you could impress your friends with out in the woods. And then I love this other one that grows on trees and kind of just looks like, makes all the trees look like they have Grinch arms. Right.
Okay, so I think that this is actually one of the most important slides in the presentation. These are basically the top 3 poisonous plants of the Pacific Northwest that we're going to be talking about. So the first one is poison ivy, and you can tell this is poison ivy because you can see that there's 3 different leaves and they kind of have like this symmetrical-ish shape. And so the easiest way to tell poison oak or poison ivy is just, you know, the clumps of 3 basically. And you can see that poison oak is a lot shinier and glossier than poison ivy, though sometimes, you know, based on the weather, it can kind of be more difficult to tell if something is poison oak. So it's not only, you know, the glossiness of it, it's just that you have to really watch out for groups of 3. Another really important thing to do in general before you're out in the backcountry hiking is just to look up and like research the area beforehand and see if it's like a very, you know, if the area is known for having a lot of poison ivy or poison oak, because that's something that's really good to know beforehand. I don't know if anyone has gotten poison oak before, but like if it gets on your pant legs, you know, the oils, they kind of rub off onto other parts. So, you know, it's just really good to be careful and watch where you're stepping in that case. And another really great reason to just stay on the trail, basically. The last one, stinging nettle, I think is a little bit easier to identify compared to these 2. Like sometimes I still have trouble, you know, seeing or finding poison ivy or poison oak when I'm out hiking. So stinging nettle, as you can see, has like this very kind of rough pattern. There's a lot of lines coming out here. It's also known for the multiple little points at the end, and they often grow on like large bunches. So if you see them, you know, they're pretty easy to spot. If you ever do get into stinging nettle, to alleviate the discomfort, you can actually rub the underside of a sword fern onto the area. So earlier we talked how the sword fern, the underside has like these little brown like seeds or spores. So if you rub the underside of the sword fern like onto the area that had the stinging nettle, then it does wonders to really help the itching. So if you ever get into that, just, you know, look for some sword fern and it should help you out there. Next, we're going to be talking about flowers on a happier note.
Cool. I'm gonna put one other plug in for nettles. They, like the leaves, are often harvested to make tea and like salads and are edible, especially the younger ones. And then I've also had folks who like use nettles on like sore joints and stuff like that when backpacking. What it does, it'll hurt initially, but it kind of gives you like the pins and needles feeling and actually like brings a bunch of blood to that space. I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend it because it is pretty uncomfortable, but it has been used like for medicinal purposes as well. So I'd like your all's participation here. These are some flowers of the area, and there's a chat. I'd love to see what's going on.
The website and the book.
Cool. Sweet.
Nettles.
So I gave the answers back.
Oh.
Okay. So I would love if you all could maybe help me identify some of these flowers here, or if anybody recognizes any of them off the top. The word bank is over here on the left. So if anybody thinks they know what any of these are, yeah, feel free to share that. Or just take a guess, and on the next slide, we'll see if we got them right.
I'm calling the top left flower the buttercup.
Nice. That is what that one is. Good
Yes.
job. Thanks for joining us.
I'm more than willing to keep going too.
We'll see if Levine or Abbott have any guesses.
This is Abbott. I guess the bottom right is bear grass.
That is correct. Nice work.
Not too sure.
Okay, that's okay. Ian, do you have any more that you want to share?
Isn't the top right one foxglove?
That is true.
I heard that's poisonous.
I
Probably only if you ate it.
can't confirm that, but I know it is
That's what I
kind of invasive. Yeah. Okay. So that makes me a little awkward. Hey, okay. Cool. So some of these other ones, this one down here, the purple one in the bottom left corner is one of my favorites. It's a lupin. They have like really cool star-shaped leaves. This pink one here is fireweed. It's like, it grows often a lot after places have had fires, and it's like really important for kind of regenerating the soil and kind of allowing for other things to grow back. This one here is pretty easy to remember. It's called the trillium. It's got 3 leaves and 3 petals. So if you just remember try, that should help that one out. And the one to the right here, does anybody know this one? I'll give them all away.
I feel like you said everything except for geranium, right?
That is true. Yeah, that was an easy one. So yeah, so that's what that one is. And here are all the names next to them.
Feel free to screenshot it if anyone wants to keep on practicing.
Yeah. And then I don't think y'all can see me actually with this, but I'm gonna turn sharing off for a second. So a handy dandy thing for when you're out backpacking, I have one of these like little pamphlets of different flowers of Oregon's Cascade range. And there's a lot of these different like very light, very small pamphlets that you can use for like plant or like mushroom or tree identification. I found this one at a used bookstore, so if you just keep your eye out, they're not too hard to come by, but they're pretty handy for taking out backpacking or hiking with you because they don't weigh a whole lot. Back to this. All right, and now we're gonna do some Kahoot.
Cool. Has anybody played or heard of Kahoot before? Just shout out yes or no. Lavina says yes.
Yes.
No.
No. Okay, so basically Kahoot is like an online quiz game that people do, and we're going to be doing that as a fun way to sort of like review, what we've learned or what we've covered tonight. So I'm going to pull up, try and pull up the website here and screen share. Wait, Christina, so got to figure out some technology stuff for a second here. So I can screen share on this, right?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing my screen. Oh, what did I do? I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Just figure out how to get this going. So basically, there's going to be 11 different questions on the different plants that we went over tonight, and I hope that this works. So I'd be sad if it didn't, actually.
Also, folks can log in with their devices.
Okay. So now I can share my screen because I have it all set up at last. Okay. Everyone can see this okay? So basically into your web page, you can type in www.kahoot.it, and when you get to that website, then you can type it in the game pin, which is 6267629. And you don't need an account. You can just type in this and it should bring you to the right place and we can start the game. So if anyone has any questions logging in, just let me know and I'll try my best to help. Would you like to play?
Sure. Thanks for my phone.
Have Ian, Bobine. Christina's going to join us.
Why don't you all go ahead with that meeting?
Okay, so I'm going to start the game. Okay, is everyone ready? Ready to go? It looks like a competition, but really it's just for fun. So and there's no pressure, right? Okay, so I'm going to start the game. Pacific Northwest plant ID 2. So the first question, characteristics of the Douglas fir, and you have 20 seconds to answer the question. So you just click on whichever one you think is the right answer. Red, blue, yellow, or green. Okay, so characteristics of Douglas fir. Flat, friendly fir, and has fire-resistant bark. I see there's only 2 responses. Was somebody not able to, or is it not working out on someone's end?
This is Abbott. My laptop is very old and it doesn't click very well, so I might miss a couple.
Okay. I'm not sure if I have a setting to make the time last longer, but I could try to see what I can do there. So you have time to click through it. I probably should have added more time to it, but I'll move on to the next question here. So scoreboard, okay. So name the tree. Oh, why is it only 8 seconds? So in 10 seconds. I'm sorry, everyone. It was a vine maple. Let's hope that it's for more time for the next one. Okay. Huh. What do you think I should do? Because I put it for 20 seconds.
Maybe you could restart it.
Restart the
After you
round.
changed it, yeah. It looks like 2 folks got that one right instead of yeah.
Okay. Nice job. I'm sorry about this technology, you know. I'm not.
The story of
Yeah.
6 months.
Okay.
Or we could just keep going.
Yeah. It's like this one has more time on it. That's good. Okay, so all of the answers were correct for the Western red cedar. Has scale-like leaves, makes great firewood, leaves a great aroma, drooping branches, and then all of the above. So we'll move on to the next question. Again, I apologize if anyone is having trouble with the technology. Of course, on my end, there's a little bit of struggle as well. So we're in the struggle together, right? So you can eat the leaves of a licorice fern. True or false? Yes, it is false. It is the rhizomes, I believe, that you can eat. So nice job, everyone. Okay, next question. Nice job, Ian, and everyone else. Which fern is this? And it is on 7 seconds. Again. Okay, so that was the sword fern because the bracken fern is like triangle shaped and the sword fern has the blade-like leaves.
Also, the bracken fern will have like a large stem that comes up from the ground, and then the fern things kind of branch out from there, where the sword fern just like comes straight out of the ground. So it's helpful to identify them. Easier when you're in the woods than looking at a screen.
True or false? Oh, still in the waiting room.
I can join in. We'll do my question and answer stuff. It's good for them.
Okay. Hi.
Welcome.
Oh, okay. So Salal, leathergreen underbrush, Oregon grape is just an evergreen. So that is true. Okay, back in the waiting room. Cool. Hi.
So just a heads up, we're just kind of doing a review of the slides, but we'll have some time for like question and answers at the end of this. And if you have any questions for us about plant identification, we're happy to chat. Also, this is being recorded, so we'll have it up on YouTube later.
Okay, so we'll move on to question number 8 of our Kahoot. And if you'd like to join Amber, you can go to www.kahoot.it, and our game pin is just at the bottom right corner if you're interested in doing a couple of questions. So let's move on. Nice job, Lavina. Top of the board. Talking about poison. Yep, and that was poison ivy. So I had the 3 different leaves. Okay. What is poison oak like? Okay. So it has 3 leaves, it's shiny and glossy. And 2 more questions here. Christina also joined us, cool. Name these flowers. So I gave everyone a full minute here. So 4 different options, 4 different flowers. See if you can try and match them up. This is kind of like the challenge question, you know, grand finale. So yeah. Okay, nice job. Everyone got that right. You're doing good. So cool. This is our last question. How do you feel about plant ID? If I were playing, I'd click the yellow. Cool. Okay. So the Kahoot podium. Wow, Kahoot.
Woohoo.
Nice job, Lavina. You won our Kahoot. Nice job. I'll stop my screen share and we will try and be closing up, I believe.